Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here to talk about my favorite mystery thrillers for 2023, or at least that I read that year, not necessarily that came out that year. And I guess I should say mystery slash thriller slash horror slash sort of a like paranormal fantasy. I don't know, to me it makes sense to put all these books together, especially since I don't tend to read a lot of any of these. So that's what we're doing. I have 5 books to talk about. I will link the playlist of my end of year content. I am splitting it up by genre. I will also list content warnings down below and put any links to like videos or channels or anything like that. So in the number 5 spot, I guess this is sort of like an honorable mention, but I just wanted to mention the Enola Holmes series again by Nancy Springer. This is a retelling that is following the younger sister of Mycroft and Sherlock Holmes, like as if they had a younger sister, and she also ends up getting pulled into like these different mysteries and things. And I'm just really enjoying the series, and I think one of the reasons that this stands out to me is that there were a couple of books near the beginning that I didn't love as much, and I also had like kind of mixed feelings about the movie, so I wasn't sure how I would feel about like the later novels, but I've actually been really enjoying them. I like the writing. I think the mystery is well done. I really love Enola as a character and how like genuinely clever and adaptable she is. Like we spend a lot of the book like actually seeing her, you know, do these plans and be smart rather than just being told about it. Like there are still times where it's like she'll do something where it's like, well, that seems out of character just so that we can get to the next like plot point, you know? But in general, I'm really enjoying the series. I think the family relationships are also really complex and really interesting. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that series. In the number 4 spot, I have the sort of odd one out because this is like, technically I probably should have put it in fantasy, but I ended up putting it here because it feels almost like a horror fantasy or like a spooky fantasy. And that is Endless Water, Starless Sky. I kind of just mean the whole duology, but I read the second book in 2023. This is by Rosamund Hodge. I love Rosamund Hodge. Her books are very weird. They are very specific. I have such a hard time like recommending them because I don't really know how to, or like who they would be best suited for. Like I love them, but I recognize that not everybody loves them. And so this duology is a very dark fantasy retelling of Romeo and Juliet. Like it's set after the events of Romeo and Juliet, and we are following 4 main characters. I guess is it a spoiler to tell you who some of the main characters are? I don't think so. So we're basically following like a Romeo and Juliet character, or 2 characters. We're also following Runaho, who is the Rosaline character, sort of, and we're also following Paris. And basically there is a like ceremony that goes wrong, and that is what kills Romeo and Juliet. And so there's a lot of like fallout from that. They end up getting like bonded to these other characters. So there's a lot about like these complicated friendships that I thought were really well done. And I think I prefer the first book to the second, but I did still really enjoy both of them. And this was such a pleasant surprise for me because even though I love Rosamund Hodge, I was kind of hesitant about this series because I said before, I think I'm not exaggerating when I say I have never heard a positive review for it. Like obviously there are people who like it, you know, on Goodreads you can find higher ratings, but like all of the reviews I've seen, most of the like editorial comments I've seen is like nobody likes these. But I did. So I think this just proves that Rosamund Hodge does really I really vibe with the things that she writes. Like I said, I think the relationships were really complicated in a way that was very compelling, was very interesting. There's a lot of like difficult choices in these books, and a lot of like morally gray characters, and that's something that I can be picky about, but I feel like in these books it's done really well. I think the setting is incredibly interesting. Like I said, it is a pretty dark fantasy. There is quite a lot about like blood and kind of like sacrifice, like related to some of the plot stuff. So again, check content warnings. But yeah, like these characters, like especially like a few of them, I love them so much. Like they're just doing their best. And I really love them. So I don't think it was a very coherent review, but I really enjoyed that series. Then in the number 3 spot, I have Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Yamide. This is a contemporary thriller. We are following 2 teens who are the only Black students at their school, which is this very wealthy, very elite sort of like prep school. And they start getting bullied and targeted very aggressively by this like online persona, this online person, who goes by Aces, and they start revealing the secrets of our 2 main characters in ways that are really dangerous and that could get a lot of people hurt. And they seem to be really like targeting these two students specifically. So they sort of have to like team up together. Like they never interacted. They didn't really know each other. But they kind of have to become friends now and allies in order to figure out like who this ACEs person is, why they're doing this, and obviously they're trying to stop them as well. And I think this is such a smart and interesting book. This is one of those books where like, yes, there is a compelling mystery, and I think that's really well done, but also the mystery is like saying something. And that's something that I really enjoy. I think that this, like the commentary of this book is really smart and really incisive. And I said in the wrap up where we talked about this one, that one of the things I find really impressive about Ace of Spades is that the scope of the story makes sense. Like it feels really well set up, because sometimes I feel like, I don't know, sometimes in books that involve like oh, there's more going on than you think, I think sometimes that doesn't match the sort of like setup or like the scope of the story that is already established, if that makes sense. Whereas with Ace of Spades, there were things that were like surprising, or things that were that were set up but that didn't play out the way you expect, but all of it still was like cohesive and it made sense, and it felt realistic, you know, sadly realistic. And I just thought that was very impressive. I do think our two main characters were really well written. I especially love Chiamaka, who is the female lead. She's just unapologetically like determined and ambitious and smart, and she's not necessarily a nice or friendly person, but it's in a way that I think is really understandable. I also did like Devon, our other main character, but I really, really loved Chiamaka. And there's also some queer rep in this book, and I think the way that it talks about that is really well done. Like, I just found this a really, really interesting book. Yeah, I thought it was great. Everybody already read this one, but I also read it now, and I thought it was great. Then, number 2 on my list, I have The Night Raven by Johan Rundberg, translated by A.A. Prime. This is the first book in the Moonwind mystery series, and as you can tell, it is a translated book. So I'm really glad that it actually has gotten the like relative amount of attention it has here in the US. And I read this one because of a recent like collab vlog project I did, so I will link that below. And the only reason I heard of it is because of that project, so I'm really, really glad that I found it. This is a really short mystery, but I found it incredibly well done and compelling. We're following a young girl who lives at an orphanage, and she sort of like takes care of some of the other kids, and the orphanage is, I think, a lot more nuanced in a way than I think you sometimes see in middle grade, which like it's very understandable that like middle grade books often it's like the orphanages are like horrible places, because unfortunately a lot of them are. But I think it's interesting that in this one it's more of like, it's, you know, like the adults are doing their best, but they get no support. You know, they don't get many resources. They're imperfect people. Like they're trying to take care of these kids, but it's hard. And so I think that is a really interesting sort of version of like the setting or of this like backstory. And so our main character, she's this young girl who gets unexpectedly like pulled into a like series of like murders or attacks that are happening around the city. And this is, again, like I guess a common theme here with mysteries I tend to really enjoy. This is a book that also like it has a mystery, but it also is like saying something. Like the way this book deals with like class and poverty and how like your opportunities determine so many things about your life, or like even how long you can survive. Like I think it's all done in a way that is appropriate for kids, although this is on the more heavy side, so just keep that in mind if you're thinking of getting this for a middle grader in your life. But I think overall it is kid appropriate, but it does deal with these really big ideas. I also think our main character is just really lovable. I really enjoy her. She is very determined and she can be very playful, but she also has been forced to be very mature from a very young age, because she has sort of taken on this role of like caretaker for some of the other kids. And I thought the mystery as well was very interesting. I thought the setting was really well done. This is a very like snowy kind of cold weather atmosphere sort of book. So I thought this was great. I can't wait for the other books in the series to get translated. I hope they do. And then finally, number 1 on my list, probably the least surprising entry on this list, Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Myrna Garcia. This is a sort of like psychological horror suspense thriller. I don't know what kind of mix it is, but I love Sylvia Myrna Garcia. We know this. Like, if you've been on my channel for any length of time, I think she's incredible. I think she's so talented. I love basically everything she writes, and pretty much regardless of genre. And I was expecting to enjoy this book, but I was not expecting it to be one of my favorite books by her. So this is set in, I think, like the 80s in Mexico City, and it deals a lot with like the film industry of the time, and specifically sound editing, which I did not think I would be interested in, but it was fascinating. And our female main character, she is a sound editor, and she's incredibly good at her job. She's like the best in her studio, but because of all the like misogyny and the boys club culture, she's not recognized for that. So she's very frustrated in her job. And then like the male lead, he is her like childhood friend who she also had a crush on, or has had a crush on for a very long time, and they kind of just like ignore that now, who is a sort of like fading like, not child star exactly, but he was like a heartthrob, you know? And he's still trying to get back into acting, but it's hard because of some tragedy and scandal in his past. And then one of his new neighbors that like moves into the apartment near him, they find out that he is this like director of horror movies who did a couple of like cult favorite movies that like the two of our main characters really, really love. And so they end up like making friends with him, getting to know him, and he ends up eventually telling them that the reason that he thinks his career has gone downhill is there's like this curse that was put on the movie he was doing, or like this spell that it was used for. And the person who did this like spell, or who like, you know, cursed this movie, is somebody who ended up being very involved in like the Nazi party and also like the occultism kind of movement or like idea. So thematically, this book talks a lot about things like eugenics and racism and xenophobia. Obviously it deals with like fascism and, you know, Nazi ideals, so keep that in mind as well. But I think it is a really, really smart book. I personally feel like the tension and the uneasiness was brilliantly done. Like, this is not one of those like twists every other page kind of thriller. So if that's what you're looking for, this isn't that. It's much more like atmospheric and kind of like that building tension, which I prefer. I think it was really effective and really well done. And there were some like truly frightening moments in it that I think were also very effective. And I love these characters so much. Like, Sylvia Minna Garcia is, I think, one of the absolute best at writing main characters that in a lot of other cases I would think I wouldn't like, but I always end up caring about them so much. Like, I buddy read this with my friend Yvette from Book Cave. We have a tradition of like buddy reading the new Sylvia Minna Garcia book that comes out, and we had like the same experience with like the male lead specifically, of like he's like so frustrating sometimes, and especially at the beginning of the book it's like, ugh, like he's getting on my nerves, but we end up loving him anyway, kind of like the main female character. So anyway, Sylvia Minna Garcia is a genius. I love her. This was my favorite sort of mystery thriller-esque book that I read in 2023. Okay, everybody, so that was the list for my very nebulous category. There's like mysteries, there's thrillers, there's like a horror, sort of like a psychological horror, there's like a horror fantasy. I just threw them all together. Let me know if you have read any of these, what you thought of them, or if you're interested in them. Let me know a book in any of these genres that you have loved recently. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!